All right, welcome everyone to another episode of our podcast. Today, you'll be seeing some missing faces as there are some members that unfortunately will not be able to attend this podcast. But nevertheless, we will still have a new episode. So today's episode will be about patriarchy. And actually, today we will have one of our newer members to lead the podcast. So without further ado, let's bring Mia to the stage.
Hi guys, I'm Mia and I will be hosting today's podcast, Retrospective Look, the Patriarchy. So guys, what do you guys think about the patriarchy? Like what is the definition of patriarchy in your guys' opinion?
I think patriarchy is a system where male, like the males are in control. So if we're looking at a patriarchal society, it would most likely be a male dominated society.
I mean, it was we kind of did have a patriarchy system a lot in the past, where actually I think we still do actually in like some countries, like Saudi Arabia. I think last time, women weren't allowed to like do stuff without like male supervision. So I don't know about now, but it used to be like that. And like according to like what Jones said, by definition, patriarchy is a system where like the males are dominant and like the females have like zero power. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think that a patriarchy is a social system where men have the power and feminists try to get rid of it. And probably you guys like hear this phrase often, like smash the patriarchy and something like that. Oh, I also want to clear things up that feminism is not like men hating. Feminism is like we want equal rights for both men and women because we realize that the patriarchy also gives many disadvantages for men, to men. Moving on, has the patriarchy affected you guys somehow? Like, what do you guys feel about this?
I think for me personally, I'm grateful. I'm like lucky to live in like a stable like country, stable stable generation. So it hasn't really like affected me like I'm not living in the concept. But then there's like a lot of like things going on like feminism. There's like a lot of protests and like buzzwords going around like around the whole topic. So I guess it's more of like there's talks about it. So like sometimes I just like listen in, but I'm not really like majorly affected. What about you, Jones?
I mean, for me, I don't really think I've been directly affected, although I believe that lots of, from a male perspective, lots of boys our age, due to like the patriarchy where men are expected to be manly and this and that, lots of the things we do could be judged. Like, for example, sometimes when we do stuff, like some people may say, like, this is gay, that is gay. And we're just being real right here. Like, for example, if a man wanted to dance or wear a skirt and all that, people would say it's gay. And I feel like that is based on the male patriarchy, the patriarchal society we're living in. So I guess that has affected me and has affected lots of other boys my age. So yeah.
Yeah, the patriarchy has affected me in some ways, especially like the sexist comments, gender roles, and gender stereotypes, where like a lot of people expect me to not get like a really high education because they think that I will like stay at home and cook and be a obedient wife. And I was shocked when people said that to me because we're in the 21st century, and I thought that people has already like throw away that perspective, you know?
That perspective is like still it's still like widespread. Like there's like a lot of people thinking like there's like some jobs that like only men can do. There's like a lot of like mindsets like that's like still lingering about like, the topic.
Yeah, what about you, Alexa? What do you think about the patriarchy? Has it affected you somehow?
Well, I think it has, but in a different way because mine is mainly based off of religious teachings because I grew up in a very religious household. So it's very like traditional and conservative. And my parents raised me according to Muslim rules. And, if you're familiar with it, then you know that a lot of it is heavily based on, I don't want to say male supremacy, but the men in the family are typically regarded as more powerful, if that makes sense. It hasn't affected me that greatly, but I definitely have felt uncomfortable or thought that I was treated unfairly just because most of the excuses that they have given me when they don't allow me to do something is just because I'm a girl. And so I don't have as much freedom as my brother would have because he's a boy. So that's like my biggest reason for that.
Okay, moving on. What do you guys think about the outcome of the patriarchy in our everyday lives?
Honestly, for me, I dare say that we haven't seen the outcome clearly yet because like it's still a big issue in society. Like it's not solved yet, basically, because there's still like mindsets around it, especially like in the older generation. There's still like a lot of mindsets how like the man has to work and like the woman has to stay at home. That's like something that was like a big thing in like the older generations. So yeah, but then for honestly, like I think patriarchy can teach us a lot, especially like there's like a lot of like there's a lot of like women that's like more frequently like holding high positions, like for instance, prime ministers, court judges, government positions, and a lot of things. Like mostly for me, I think that the best thing of patriarchy is like it gives women like the motivation and the chance to like shine, to like prove themselves, to everyone else that hey, I can also do the stuff you can do.
What about you, Alexa?
Uh, I feel like, yeah, I agree with Kenzo. The patriarchy has definitely led to, I mean, it's a lot better now because we're evolving and we're starting to stand up for things. But, I mean, especially in the past, it led to a lot of problems in unequal wages and unequal opportunities between men and women, which I'm glad that we're starting to bridge that gap now. But it used to be a really big problem that I used to be like, as a little girl, I was really scared that I wouldn't have a place in society. Like have, I wouldn't be as successful as other boys would be just because I grew up with that stigma that I'm not gonna, that society doesn't treat women as well as they do with men because, I read so much about like unequal wages and stuff. So that was definitely like a struggle, but now things are changing. So that's good.
I mean, I agree with Kenzo and Alexa, but I believe that the reason that patriarchy, like getting rid of patriarchy, is so slow is because it's not necessarily just about empowering women. We all To get rid of patriarchy, we also need to like get rid of basic mindsets that are instilled with people, and also some people they have patriarchy around due to their beliefs and religions. So I guess that's one reason why it's still around today, even though it's getting better.
Yeah, I agree with Jones, especially about the gender roles and gender stereotypes. Like, the gender role, like the society expects us to act based on our genders. Like, for example, like women should just stay at home and cook, and men should to get a job and pay for the family, be masculine, and all that. And about gender stereotypes, I think that like they're labeling us based on our gender. Like women are usually weaker, sensitive, motherly, and polite. Men are stronger, dominating, and assertive. What do you guys think about that?
Well, to be fair, I'm not that like updated on like the how to say this. Like, I'm not like that like updated on like the status of like feminism, how it's going. But like what I can see from like when I go to like my neighborhoods or like when I go like outside, I can still see like that mindset. Like women are like at home and like basically in like a household in like my neighborhood. Usually like the guy like the males, the husbands are like the one who's like working, and like the women are like the one like staying at home. That's like a very common thing in my neighborhood. And I think that's also like very common things in like most households, but I can't say for sure because I don't know for sure. But then honestly, like I really disagree with like the mindset because honestly, women can also like they have the capability to work as well as men do. Like they can do work, like they can like do office work as well as like a male does and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree with Kenzo. I think I think it's just especially because we live in Indonesia, which is a very conservative country. So there's like the stigma that females should be at home while the men should work. But in other countries where it's starting to be more progressive and it's starting to be more modern, like Western countries like the US and Australia and like places in Europe, that stigma is starting to change and break. And a lot of women, they're choosing not to have families, which I think is like, I know a lot of people think that that's selfish. Like there's a selfishness about that, but I don't think that's true at all. And I'm really happy that women are starting to rise and take their place in society and be true to themselves when they say that I want to prioritize my work. And that's really empowering for everyone. I think one of the main reasons that this is so is just because, like, especially in like third world countries, just because of like the lack of education that women receive, and that's why they might not feel as they might not have the resources to get jobs and focus on their work as much as they would have if they had the resources they achieved. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Alexa, especially like gender equality. Feminism is a very taboo topic, especially here in Indonesia or other developing countries.
I mean, honestly, like any like topic that has like change, like applies for change, it's something that's like kind of hard to, uh, how do I say this? For the new generation, change is good, right? But for the older generation, they prefer things like how they are right now. Like honestly, if you were to like tell like someone like, for example, if like go to like a random like elderly man at like the street and like tell them like, can you like stay at home for like a few days and let your wife work? Of course, he would say like, no, I'm already working and stuff like that, right? Honestly, change is something that's very it's a very sensitive topic in our society, especially like honestly for me also, I very dislike change. It's very hard for me to like change my habits and like my routine and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean a topic like this, like patriarchy, is something that's already like very prevalent, even though it's not as big as it was in like history. It's still very prevalent today. So honestly, for me, I think it's like very hard for people to grasp or like to understand the topic because it's something they've already done like for like a long time.
So you think the patriarchy can only be absolved, it can only be corrected after a few generations, like over time, where the old people, as you say, might have forgotten about it or are gone, and it's just like up to us, the new generation, to do our own thing. And
Well, I wouldn't say it's not possible. I would just say like it's gonna be hard. It's like a hard process, especially like as I said before, like the older generation has like done it for like a long time, while we're like if you compare someone who's like been living like in the world for like only like 10 years compared to like someone who's like living in the world for like 57 years, like the person with like 57 years like is gonna have like a lot of habits and stuff that like they've already been doing for like a long time in their lives. So it's gonna be like very hard for them to like, oh, so now I'll just like stop doing this. Like it's gonna be very hard for them, but it's still possible. I would say it's still possible. Just like gonna have a lot of time, a lot of effort. Like it's very hard.
I'd like to add to Kanjo. I believe that with society, values change as time goes on. So that's why maybe Kenzo is saying that it can get better and it will get better as more time goes on. But right now we're like in that middle where we're between the very old people with their traditional and old way, conservative way of thinking, and like also the new generation. So that's why it may get better as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. I believe that the patriarchy will like be gone in a few years, I guess. I see that there are a lot of youth organizations, a lot of teenagers starting youth organizations and spreading awareness about these kind of topics, like, feminism, mental health, and all that. Moving on, let's talk about toxic masculinity. Not a lot of people talk about this enough. In my opinion, toxic masculinity, it like forces men to act like what the society think what men should act like manly. It gives them like pressure and can affect their mental health. Like one of the examples is like not expressing their emotions, like not allowed to cry. Like when men cry, people always say something like, "Oh my God, why are you crying? That's like for girls. Like crying is for girls only." In fact, in one of my history class, I forgot what topic we are talking about, but one of the teacher asked this one boy, "What do you think about boys crying?" And he said that I think that boys or men are not allowed to cry because it shows people that they are weak. He said that his father told him that, and I was kind of sad when I heard that because like there's nothing wrong with expressing your emotions.
Actually, that's something that's already affected me as well because in the past I used to be someone who's like really like emotional. Like when I was like still a child, I was like I really like to like express my emotions. If I feel about something in a certain way, like emotionally based, I would like somebody say like like I kind of don't like this thing. I just like don't like it. And like sometimes if I'm too like how do I say this? If I'm too vocal, they will say like, why are you making such a big thing out of it and stuff like that. Like just like what you said earlier, like emotions are like for girls and like apologies for like that's like the mindset I grew up with. I don't know if it's like because of my like environment or like that's how like their parent taught them. I don't know, but the main point is that like that shaped me to this point, like I'm like more logical than emotional because of like what I've experienced in the past, because like the toxic masculinity concept. And like honestly for me, I don't see what's wrong with like boys being emotional. Like there's a lot of, I mean honestly, like being emotional is like it's very useful honestly, because for example, like if you go to like a certain like task and you do it like based on like, oh, is this okay, pro and cons, it's okay. But then having like emotional feelings as well, like for example, factoring your gut feelings, factoring in like how you feel personally, I think it's also like very good things to consider. So I don't see why toxic masculinity is like correct.
Yeah, no, I hate it. I think emotions are very valid, and I hate that expressing them is considered to be weak amongst men. Like that makes no sense. If anything, it makes you stronger to be able to admit how you feel. You know, with the boys that I'm friends with, especially, it's hard for them to be confrontational. And when they're upset, they just hide it or ignore it. And I know it's frustrating for me because, like, to be on the receiving end of it, like, if I ask them what's wrong and I know there's something clearly wrong and they don't want to express their feelings just because they don't want to be seen as a vulnerable person, and it's not like considered manly. I know it's especially frustrating for them too, you know, because okay, I can't relate because I don't have the male experience as much as you guys would have. So I kind of want to ask you guys, do you guys feel like not being able to express all these emotions, like all these bottling up, does it affect your mental health at all? Like, do you guys feel kind of burdened by it, like not being able to say anything?
I mean, for me, like, I think I fall into this category because I don't really express my emotions or like tell people about my emotions. But then the thing about it, something that my mother always tells me is that, and I don't know if this adds to toxic masculinity or not, but the thing about our society right now is when a man gets angry, they're like immediately viewed as violent. And I guess that's like one of the reasons why I don't necessarily show my anger or show my emotions as much, because I feel like there's more pressure on men to control that side of them, because once they like let it out, it may be seen as violent or aggressive.
I think I've seen a story about it as well. About like toxic masculinity. Like if you like basically, men victims are like seen as like something impossible. You know, like for example, there was like a case study last time that I've like seen when I was like browsing like the internet. If a girl like says like she's being raped, the police will believe her. Sorry for the sensitive topic, by the way. But then if like the male says like they're being raped by like a woman, the police like won't believe them. So like I think honestly like that's also like one of the hurtful like parts of it, because men are like seen as like strong, right? And like usually like as like what we've already like discussed earlier, like most of the mindset is like if male shows emotions, they're weak. And then like basically that makes them as like, how do I say this? It makes it hard for them to like be a victim, you know, because even if they're the victim, people usually like won't believe them. Like even if you were like be on social media, if like a guy does something to like a girl and then the girl like complains about it, the guy will always like get the blame. But then if like the guy says like the girl does something wrong, people usually be like, ah, no way, like we probably did something wrong or something like that. So there's also like one of the things is like I hate about it.
Yeah, I agree. People usually say that men are enjoying it instead of like becoming the victim. And a lot of people on TikTok, actually, I saw a story on TikTok about this. He also said that the police and his family didn't believe that he was raped and all that, and it's really really sad. And but people in the comments supported him, and I'm really happy to see that. Okay, before we continue, I want to give y'all like a trigger warning because we're gonna talk about like gender-based violence and rape. So if you guys are not comfortable with this, please skip this part. Okay. So what do you guys think about gender-based violence?
Gender-based crime. I mean, like I said before, like there's a lot of like, how to say this? There's a lot of hate for like X gender by other gender. You know, like for example, like males can usually like see like women as like if from the person from the people I've encountered like online, because I use Discord, right, and sometimes I like join random servers, and what I've like encountered like most of the time is like men thinking that like women like are like how do I say this? like men think like women can't do anything, and like honestly, women are like always frequently like bullied in the community because like they try to do something, but like I know like the men say like we can do better than you and stuff like that. So they're always like frequently like bullied about it. As for like actual crime itself, I can't say much. But then like I once again like to repeat like my analogy earlier. If a woman says she's raped, then the police will believe her. But like if the male says like he's raped like by a woman, the police won't believe her. And that's like one of like the biggest basis I have on like the gender based violence thing. So I can't say much though.
Sorry. Well, rape is actually a very taboo topic, especially here in Indonesia. I think everywhere, rape is still a taboo topic. Like, for example, if a girl was raped, people usually blames the girl. Victim blaming because they will say something like, probably she's wearing a very short skirt, revealing outfits, and they always, blame the victim. But of course, I agree with Kenzo. Male can, of course, can always be the victim. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think double standards is a really big issue. Like Kenzo said, it's harder to believe the male in cases of rape if he's saying that he gets accused. But either way, it's really bad for both genders, especially. I don't know if you guys know about. There's like this group of males called. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called incels, where they have like these radical views on women, and it leads to a lot of hate crimes amongst them. And I think it really goes to show how far hate the extent of hate, to the point of hating an entire gender just because of like a few experiences that's being done to them. And it's really dangerous.
I'm not so educated about the topic, but then when we look at rape, I believe that it affects both genders negatively. Like, for example, if a woman says she gets raped, let's say that people don't believe her. And one of the reasons people may not believe her is because lots of men uh, get accused of rape, which then turns out to be false and then um, can ruin their lives or careers. But then also, women, some of them actually get raped, and then they say they get raped, but then people don't believe them because of that. So I believe that it the whole situation of rape in general has negative impacts on both male and women.
There is actually a case about rape. I think it's pretty popular a few weeks ago, I guess. So okay, so there is a mother called Lydia, and she has 3 children, and she is divorced. But her ex-husband usually picks up the kids after school, buys them food and toys. And in October 2019, her eldest daughter said that her private part hurts and that her father raped her. Then Lydia asked her other 2 daughters, and they said the same thing. Yeah, the father raped them. And but the sad thing is, 3 of her daughters are under 10 years old. So Lydia told and complained to Pusat Pelayanan Terpadu in Luwu Timur and also to the police, but nobody believed her and they said that she has a mental health issue. And 3 of her daughters didn't get any rights, and Lydia, the process is really painful. Her children did not get any psychological help during the research process, and Lydia was forced to sign a BAP or Berita Acara Pemeriksaan without reading it first. She was forced to do that, and on December 10th, 2019, they dropped the case somehow, and for no reason. When Lydia asked them to reopen the case and to do more research on it, they ignored her, and they also ignored like the evidence, like the video, physical wounds, and the victims' confessions, and many more. Also, because of this case, people started using the hashtag percuma lapor polisi because the police did not do anything. And there are also a lot of people opening up on TikTok about the similar cases like this, and they also use the hashtag percuma lapor polisi. So it's really sad. What do you guys think about this?
I think honestly, like once I said again, the old mindset of like, you know, like basically like the old generation is like very. It's still there's still aspects of patriarchy in like the let's say this in like the older generation, including like the police. And like honestly, I can't say much about the case because I'm not really like informed about it. But one thing I really like, or like what you said earlier, I really like how like people nowadays are like more vocal, especially in like social media. Because in the past, when something happened, literally like the only the only way for it to like gain publicity is either like news articles or like the news itself. But then nowadays, the newer generation is way more vocal, especially in like how do I say this? Especially in like social media, like what you said in TikTok, people are talking about it. So I really like how like the new generation is like way more vocal about things now.
I think I know of like a similar case that my friend told me a while back. It was also in Indonesia. This girl, she was a teenager. I think she was around 15 years old. She got raped, and what the local government decided to do is they forced her to marry the perpetrator. The father consented to her marrying the perpetrator, and I think that's insane because she was victimized, like she was sorry, and she got raped. Yet they're forcing her to marry the person who had hurt her like that because she got pregnant. So it just shows how like a conservative country like this one, you'd rather force a girl to suffer rather than to see her raise the baby alone just because it's not up to societal standards according to like what women should do with her body.
There's also a recent case, like a few weeks ago, about this school where there's this guy who met a girl and they instantly got together, they instantly date. And the girl told Twitter about this. She explained everything and told her story about this. So she said that the guy immediately told her to send nudes to him, but the girl didn't want to. So the guy was like, "Oh, fine, but you need to get to Google Meet and watch 18 plus videos with me." And she was like, "Okay." And she also said that she was manipulated and her mental health was is not good at that time, and the guy knew about it and he took advantage of it. He also asked her to go to a swimming pool and then go to a cinema. So after they swim, they change clothes, right? So in the dressing room, the guy went to the went to the girl and tried to rape her. The girl was like, fought back, of course, but fortunately, the guy did not rape her. But the girl was super scared, and the guy still forced her to go to a cinema with him. And she said that while at the cinema, okay, so he touched her private part. She tried to stop him, but it did not work. And the school. Okay, so the guy goes to the school, and then the school tried to cover it instead of helping the victim. And in the Twitter thread post, the girl wrote his name, his school, and his phone number, and then I think the school sued the girl, and the the boy's family told her to take it down and everything. So yeah, it's really sad to see people care more about their reputation rather than helping the victims.
Wait, was this in Indonesia too?
Yeah, in Indo. So what do you guys think about abortion? What do you guys think of it? Do you think it's wrong or do you think it's right?
Okay, so abortion is like something that's like very honestly. I don't have how to say this. We don't have any rights to like determine. We don't have the rights to control if someone wants to do something. Like for example, if Mia wants to like eat something right now, I have no control. Like I have no right to tell her like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? But honestly, I think that the abortion should be like taken should be considered at least like seriously because like it's quite literally like a new life. Like how would you feel if like you were like suddenly or like someone like came up to you like at the night and just like shot you dead? Like honestly, I personally I don't want to die and like not to be like honestly not to like draw controversy, but I think that you should consider fetuses like as a life as well. Like they're not just like cells just like waiting for like develop. They're actually like they're gonna be people, you know.
I mean, I believe it's based on the situation. Like some people, they have to get an abortion because they get pregnant when they got raped and stuff like that. So I believe like we have no right to tell them whether they should get an abortion or they shouldn't get an abortion because at the end of the day, it's about their own circumstance. And how do I say this without offending people? Like they need to make the right choice. Like, for example, sometimes they might have to think it through based on their circumstances they are in, because keeping the baby alive may not be the best for them and the baby while the baby grows up. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Jones, especially because, okay, I don't know if you guys can tell. You can probably tell from me, but I'm very pro-choice. And sure, to some people, it might be considered, abortion might be considered like killing a baby. But at the same time, if you are forcing a girl to give birth, like especially if she's a teenager, where she's not in the right mentality to raise a baby, the baby is probably going to suffer more in the real life world than it would have if, okay, I don't know how to put it this delicately, like if you in the while she's still pregnant, they could be facing homelessness. The mother might not have the right resources to raise it, or like the right education. So as long as women are educated beforehand about like the different scenarios or the different opportunities they could have, like the pros and cons of raising the baby and not, and they know what they're getting themselves into, then it should be like completely up to them whether they want to bring a new life out in the world or not. Because at the end of the day, it is their responsibility to fully take care of them and make sure they live a good life if they decide to have a baby. And that is a really big ask from a person. So,
Yeah, I totally agree with Alexa, especially where when they don't have enough money to raise a child or to take care of them. And teenagers, like the case that Alexa said, where she was told to marry the rapist and to keep the baby, right? Yeah. And also about child marriage. What do you guys think about that? Child still like what 12, 11 years old, forced to have a baby and to like marry a grown man. What do you guys think about that?
Wait, sorry, I'm a little bit confused. What is child marriages exactly for? Is it a cultural thing, or are they forced into it because?
I mean, it depends on the culture. It depends on like the place they're in, because some places actually have like, okay, so some places force their children to like marriage. Like, I'm sure you've heard of like no like political marriages in the past, where like this like for example this family marries this family, so like they can have like partnerships and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's kind of like that. So like, there's some people that like force their children to marry just like get on like the good side of someone. But then there's also like places where they like the children actually has like no choice at all. Like what like the situation I described earlier, like forced marriages. And there's like some places that actually allow like the children to like they have the will to marry on their own. So like it depends on like the place you're looking at.
When we talk about child marriage, are we talking about arranged marriage, or are we talking about when children are married to adults, being forced to marry to adults?
Both of them, I guess. Both.
I mean, I guess the thing about when children are being forced to marry adults, that really depends on the culture of the people of where they are in. Even though it may not seem normal to us, to them it may seem normal, because if we see every country has their own legal age and their own what's the word for it? Every country basically has their own legal age and their own values and their own thoughts of what age you have to be to do this and to do that. So I feel like it's more than just, oh, this is bad because they're a kid, but we also need to look at how the country, the mindset of the country and the values of the country itself.
Honestly, I think that based on this topic, like if we're talking about like forced marriage, I think that children should like at least have the opportunity to choose, because honestly, like personally, I wouldn't like if I was like forced into like a relationship. If I was like forced into something, I wouldn't like it. Like especially like, as a child, I would like to want to like at least like grow like a teenager before like I'm like forced to like marry someone in case. So like I think it's a bad thing for me, honestly, personally. Yeah.
But then some people may argue that children aren't wise enough to choose who they want to marry.
Yeah, definitely. Because kids, they are still like immature. They're still in the growing process, so it's easy for them to be manipulated. And like even if they are given the illusion of free choice, it might not be the best choice just because they're under influence or something, you know? And I think my biggest problem with child marriages is consent, whether they have consent or not, because sure, as a kid, they might not have a problem with it because they don't know any better, but like they're going to grow up, they're going to start to regret, and there might be like future dangers and like problems for them in the future that they weren't aware of as a child.
Yeah, I agree with Alexa, especially when they're forced to get pregnant. They're not physically and mentally ready for that. And in Indonesia, actually, there are many cases about child marriages during this pandemic because they're, I don't know, bored because of school, or they're forced because they need money to survive the pandemic. Have you guys heard about that?
I mean, once again, I'm not really like the person who follows on the news, so I'm not really informed of the cases. But I think that it's not only like themselves; it also like puts the relationship like if like a relationship is forced, it puts the relationship itself on like thin ice, you know, because a forced love and like actual love is like different things. Because like in the future, like maybe like the spouse or like the wife would like find like genuine interest or something like that, like in someone else. Eventually, like the marriage itself will get like messed up, and like it's like it's not good for like both the receiving end, like as in the children and like the families itself.
Yeah, I think arranged marriages are okay if you're already an adult and you consent to it, like both parties are able to consent to it. But if you're a child, that's like a completely different story. I mean, for adults, there's a study that it showed that couples who are from arranged marriages are actually happier and they stay longer than people who are like able to choose their own partners, just because they're able to choose to love each other and they're able to grow into that love. But you can't say the same for kids. That's a completely different story, and I don't think that should be okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alexa. Moving on, maybe we should talk about gender inequality in workplace, like the gender wage gap, about maternity leave. What do you guys think about that?
Maternal leave is like the thing where like they allow like female workers like go off since like they have like childbirth and stuff like that, right? Just
Yeah,
for like
since you get paid.
yeah.
Well,
I think like stuff like that. It's like very considerate of like the owners of the business to like let because being pregnant and working at the same time is like something that's like I mean I don't know how exactly it feels, but I can imagine that like it's gonna be very hard. So I think it's very like considerate for owners of like businesses, like the boss of them, to like allow women to have like maternal leave and then it's still paid, and like I think it's like a very good thing.
yeah, but there are like a lot of businesses, countries that don't give money while women are in maternal leave. I don't know why, but like they only give money in the first 60 days, but in the rest of the like the few in the next month they don't give out money. Like, how do you think the women can survive if they don't have any husbands or any other source of income?
I mean, honestly, like for wages in general, it's like it's just not in like just not it's just not about like maternal leave pay. It's about wages in general. There's like some unfair wages in like work, especially, and like honestly, I think that like it's very difficult for like in your scenario where like women are only like given paid leave. That's the yeah, the term paid leave, and like the first 60 days, and like the rest of it they're like on your own. I think it's going to be like very difficult, especially like once you said they don't have a husband and stuff like that. So they're either like forced to like rely on their family or just like have the baby suffer. That's like basically it. And like it's the reality of the world we live in, because there's like some how do I say this? There's cases where like there's a lot of like unfortunate people where they either like have unfair working conditions, and like even in some countries the minimum wage is not enough for like people to like sustain their life. So yeah,
Yeah, honestly, I don't think. Wait, maternity leave is 60 days? I don't think that's enough time. I don't know if it's just me, but
it's
if I
definitely,
were, it's how many? Sorry.
it's definitely not enough.
Yeah, it's definitely not enough. I know that if I was pregnant and let's say I don't have a husband, I'd probably want, a baby is not going to be independent in 60 days. And that's like around 2 months. And not many people have the money to hire a nanny or put them into daycare. So, okay, that's really tough. I don't think that should be okay at all. The fact that people are getting unpaid leave, and especially in that short amount of time.
I agree. I also think that one place where we see gender inequality, especially like in the workforce, is actually schooling. Because if we think about it, when we look at schools, usually they advertise the principals to be like these male. Usually, if it's an international school, not trying to offend anybody, it's usually the white male as the head of the school, and then we see the teachers as, I mean, the women as just normal teachers or just staff members or people supporting the head white male. So yeah, that's one place I realized that there is gender inequality that doesn't get talked about enough in the school in schooling.
I just found it interesting. Did you guys notice like the shift between gender inequality when you're like still in school, like as a high schooler or like as a primary kid versus as an adult? Because okay, I don't know if you guys experience this, but in my school, the girls are considered to be more responsible and more mature than boys. So they're usually more. So the teachers usually give them more responsibility and give them more opportunities as like leadership, like in class captains, or like if the teacher leaves, then they usually appoint one of the girls to lead the class or something. And then like in comparison in the workplace where it's complete opposite and women aren't viewed as equals to men, like how does that shift is crazy. Like do you guys notice that? Does that happen in your school?
Yeah, it happens in my school, and I totally agree with Alexa. I'm a class leader somehow, and yeah, they give us a lot of responsibility for like more like for the girls, and they don't give.
Honestly, I would say my school. I'm very lucky to have like a school with like, how to say this. It's very like it's a good school. I would say like the like Jones can agree. The environment of like my school, I'm very lucky. It's like very, there's no like injustice. There's no like unfair treatment and everything. Even like bullying itself is like very rare. Like I mean, it does happen, but like it's like very like small, and like usually it's like very preventable, I would say. So personally, I'm very lucky to like have a good school. I'm like, so I can't say much.
Me and Kenzo go to the same school, and I agree with him. I feel like our school, if we want to succeed, we work for it. Like if we want a high position, like for example, we want to get into student council or like some kind of club or become class leader. It doesn't matter if we're like a girl or a boy. As long as we work for it, we get it. And one thing I would like to point out about our school is we have lots of female leaders. Like for example, our head of curriculum is a female, and our junior high and senior high principal are both females. So we're blessed to go to like equal school like that.
Yeah, in fact, funny fact is like, and the student council of like senior high is like mostly female. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like in my school, we're in the middle of school captains elections, and 3 of the contestants are female and 1 is a boy. And last year, both the vice captain and the school captain were both female. And like in the real life world, not in the real life world, in the workplace, you'd see that when in terms of leadership positions, it's more male dominated. So that's crazy.
Yeah, my school is like that too, and my student council's president is also a female, but I'm a part of student council, and I actually try to bring up topics like about these gender equality, mental health. They did not let me to talk about these kind of things. They said that it is too sensitive and all that. It's kind of sad. Oh no, okay. I have a question to you guys. When was the first time you guys feel gender inequality?
I think I did mention this earlier in like the podcast. Once again, like before when I was like a kid, I was exposed to like the men showing like emotions is weak thing, which is like really, basically it was like so it affected me so much to the point where like it literally like changed my whole personality. So yeah,
Do you still feel that now though? Like now with
I
like the
mean nowadays not really, but then like it's stuck with me, you know. So I mean I want to change, but like it's like stuck with me, man. Like I mean I nowadays I'm more, how do I say this? I'm more like comfortable to, like exposing myself emotionally nowadays, but I still use logically. I still prefer to use logic more on like my thoughts. It's just like stuck with me. I can't, I don't know. It's just
Okay, you
stuck.
know how there's like a lot of male pop icons like Jaden Smith or Harry Styles, and they're like trying to break gender stereotypes. Like, do these people help inspire you in some way, or like make you feel like it's more you're more comfortable with your masculinity in a way where you don't have to act a certain way just because like all these male figures are trying to break that.
I mean, honestly, for me, especially like since I used to be like the type who's like really like shy to talk in public, anyone who's like willing and is actively trying to like speak out against like about like this topics, for instance, really inspires me. Like for example, like literally any like a random person like TikTok talking about like gender equality can like inspire me to like be more confident with myself. So yeah, they do.
I mean, for me, it's basically because of the family that I grew up in. Like, I'm lucky to come from a family that's not so conservative. For example, like my grandfather, he actually wanted my mother to work in government or in law. But yeah, basically, just from the people like my mother and my aunt. My aunt actually is the head of defense in South America as a police job. So yeah, just from that, like, I'm not really, I don't really see gender inequality as much in my family. And I guess it's not because they shield it from me. They inform me about it, but they also inform me that that's not how it's supposed to be.
What's your parents' stance on like gender equality? Like, are they like teaching you to like like to like be equal or something like that? Like, how does your parents like talk about gender equality?
My parents, for me, my parents, because I come from a Christian household, and in the Bible it teaches that the male is the head of the house. So I guess we still kind of stick to that a bit. But then my mother like always tells me that there's nothing that my father can do that she can't do. So I guess she really tries to show that yes, there's gender inequality, and yes, there are religious stuff that we need to stick to, but then women are just as powerful as men are. So that's my parents' stance on the topic.
For me, I mean, I do have a Christian household as well, but then like my parents are more like flexible on it. Cause I mean, yeah, sure, we have like the patriarchy. How to say this? Patriarchy arrangement where like my dad works while my mom like takes care of the house. But then my it's not like my mom doesn't have my it's not like my dad doesn't allow my mom to work. Like my mom can work. Like my dad actively supports my mom if she wants to work. Like recently, my mom tried to increase the income of the household by like doing online shopping and like reselling it again and like just trying to find profits. And like my dad actively supports my mom and like he even like goes to like like help do like the same thing to like increase like the profits and stuff like that. So yeah, like my mom is also like uh actively like teaching me like mindsets of like this, like treat women fairly, everyone's equal and stuff like that. So I'm really grateful.
My family is similar to Jones, but I'm a Catholic. Yes, the patriarchy is still like a lot here, but they say that they support it in every like what choice I make and my career that I want to, study. And yeah, but there's still a lot of patriarchy in my family. What about you, Alexa?
Yeah, my family is very similar to Jones because like I said before, I grew up in a religious household. So, there's the stigma that males they're more powerful over women, but at the same time, my mom is a very strong and confident woman, and she's very active in the workforce. So she's always encouraging me and my sister Chloe to always to never depend on a guy and to make our way in the world first, financially and educationally, before I have to depend on someone, which is really good. But at the same time, they're also contradicting that because they won't let me do stuff just because I'm a girl. So yeah, so and so.
Anyways, what do you guys think about Indonesia's progress in achieving gender equality? And what do you think? Like, do you have any ideas on how to get rid of this? Well, I think that Indo has not done a lot about this, especially about the Sahkan RUU PKS. But to get rid of gender equality, I think we should start by raising awareness and to educate people. By starting a youth organization just like this one, it raises awareness to people, especially this is posted in social media, where in this generation a lot of people are addicted and obsessed with social media, so they can like see something about this and read.
I mean, like once again, you've said this before. People are like, people like we're talking about like the case earlier, like we mentioned in TikTok, and that's like one of the things that I think has already been very prevalent. Like everyone's like going on like social media to like talk about the issues. Like there was like that one time where like the there was like a rape case which was like hidden like by the city, but then like there's like people on the internet like they like dug in and like brought up the case again, and like everyone like on the internet like jumped in, and eventually like the case itself was like acted on, while if like the people weren't vocal about it, it'll like stay hidden. And I think that that's one of like the good things about like our generation, where once again I said this earlier that like we're more vocal about our problems, especially like over the internet, over social media, where once you said again, people are like more, it's easier to access, so people are using it more frequently nowadays.
I agree that the only way it can change and get better is if people start to speak up more and become more vocal. Because if we see stuff like all the cases that you guys have talked about, when people speak up about it, it usually goes crazy and like gets a lot of attention from people. But then I feel like the reason that stuff like this keeps happening, especially in Indo, is because lots of people they just stay silent about it and they don't tell anybody about it. So I believe the only way it can get better is if people start speaking up more.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like Mia said before, education is the biggest factor in how to solve this, especially in more rural areas where women might not have the resources to feel as empowered as they do maybe like in bigger cities like in Jakarta.
Sure, wow, I really like this episode's topic about the patriarchy. We have talked about what the patriarchy is, we talk about feminism, gender roles, toxic masculinity, abortion, child marriage, and yes, so thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and follow us. And as always, stay curious. Bye bye.